I got some simple logic for you. If quarterback was a question mark for Missouri in the offseason, well, now the quarterback appears to be a strength. Now Missouri's upside just got a lot higher.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso, and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. On today's program, I'm going to talk about the odds that Missouri and South Carolina here in just under 2 weeks will be the choice for ESPN Game Day. Plus, I always like to look at the snap counts following a Mizzou football game. A lot of different insights and questions to be answered there. Before I start the show quickly, I want to say today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. And once again, if Missouri, well, the two biggest question marks, obviously quarterback, obviously offensive line. I think offensive line still a bit of a question mark. Thought it looked improved in week 2, at least the pass protection, at least on the left side of the offensive line. Caden Green played a good game, but still, I think the Missouri offensive line is going to take a little bit of time to gel. Quarterback, though, I think at the very least, we've got a player here in Beau Pribula. I think we've gone from a question mark to quarterback looking like a real position of strength. I'm a believer in Beau going forward. If he stays healthy, I don't have any real question marks anymore. Now, does that mean he's the absolute best quarterback in the SEC? Does that mean he's a surefire Heisman Trophy winner? I'm not willing to go that far yet. But seriously, let's take a look at it just really quick here. Hey, through 2 weeks of the SEC season, I'm going to take it fairly conservatively too, as far as comparing Pribula to the rest of the quarterbacks in this conference. Well, first of all, I think Garrett Nussmeier from LSU has been really impressive early on. The team I picked to win the conference in the preseason, I'm going to stick with him at this point. John Mateer, too, at Oklahoma, I think has been really impressive to start the season. What a gunslinger he is. Taylon Green, by the way, from Arkansas, off to a hot start, as is the entire Arkansas offense. I call them the high-variance hogs last year. Frankly, I just still trust Pribula and the Missouri offense more. Maybe I'll change my mind after the Razorbacks face Ole Miss this week. DJ Lagway? Nope. Sorry. You don't get to lose to South Florida at home and keep the crown over Beau Pribula. Lagway still has a long way to go despite his immense talent. He's really inexperienced still, obviously. Lenoris Sellers, yeah, I'm still going to put him ahead of Beau Pribula. I'm a big Lenoris Sellers believer, the South Carolina quarterback, of course. Diego Pavia, yeah, sure. I think he's earned it. Another big-time performance from Pavia and Vanderbilt, just absolutely blitzing the Virginia Tech Hokies this past week in their place in Blacksburg, too. So, sure, Diego Pavia, after upsetting Alabama last year, after almost beating Texas, I mean, you know, that's an impressive thing what Pavia has helped Vanderbilt accomplish down there. Speaking of Ole Miss, Austin Simmons, he's still got a long ways to go right now. He certainly hasn't been better than Beau Pribula. By the way, as an aside here, Kejuan Lacey, the former Mizzou running back, now current Rebel, well, he's very much looking like the real deal for Ole Miss. How about Joey Aguilar at Tennessee? Hey, again, they've put up some big numbers. I think that's more of a Josh Heupel thing, and I think if you traded Beau Pribula and Joey Aguilar, well, I think Pribula would put up huge numbers for Tennessee as well, and right now, anyway, I just trust Pribula more. How about Arch Manning? Nope, not even close, and at least not so far. And by the way, notice I didn't bring up the Alabama or Georgia quarterbacks either. I think, and obviously others like Zach Calzada, don't really need to bring him up either. Marcel Reed for Texas A&M, solid player. I'll still take Beau Pribula so far. So let's recap here. I'll say Garrett Nussmeier, John Mateer, Lenoris Sellers, and Diego Pavia. I got to put them ahead of Beau Pribula right now. But the rest of those guys, I think it's Beau. That puts Pribula as the 5th best quarterback, at least in my eyes so far, in the SEC. If that's even close to being correct, let's say he's 6th, 7th, or 8th instead. That'll play. That's still above average in the conference. And I think Pribula, that's being even more conservative than I'm probably being right now. Considering what Eli Drinkwitz and I think the rest of the people who follow this Missouri team the most closely, well, we all realize this is a really strong rest of the roster. If the quarterback and the O-line cooperate, this could be a college football playoff team. To me, now the most important question is, what does this Missouri team look like if a legit question mark at the most important position on the field is now looking like a position of strength? That tells me that the Tigers are still a bit undervalued nationally. To me, they're closer to 10th than they are 25th right now. That's just my opinion. And by the way, 3 of those 4 quarterbacks that I listed ahead of Pribula, that includes Diego Pavia, Lenoris Sellers, and John Mateer, remain on Missouri's schedule. So just another kernel to those people who like to, well, take a dump on Missouri's strength of schedule on occasion. By the way, Eli Drinkwitz said that Beau Pribula was nails in those 4th down situations. I would say mostly on those 3rd down situations as well, especially if you take away that bad fumble by Pribula that Kansas picked up and ran into the end zone. But speaking of 4th downs, what did you think when Kansas had the ball facing a 4th and 7 with 2 minutes and 54 seconds to go, trailing by 4? Jayhawks had all 3 timeouts left. Jalen Daniels playing pretty good ball that day. And honestly, since that first quarter, the Jayhawks really hadn't stopped the Tigers all that much. So should Kansas have gone for it? I think with the benefit of hindsight especially, yeah, I'd say so. And really just in general, if you think about a 4th and 7 where you're trailing in that spot, you punt the football away. Okay, best case scenario, you get Missouri to go a 3 and out. There's, again, 2:54 left. Okay, you use your 3 timeouts. You've got the 1 2-minute warning left, let's say. Well, still, there's a good chance you're going to have to drive, say, 75-plus yards. More than likely, you're going to face a 4th down at some point. At least something similar to a 4th and 7, and a decent chance something quite a bit worse than a 4th and 7. So I just think, obviously, I'm not trying to tell Kansas how they should have won. The point here is, hey, let's think about these type of situations and how, frankly, Missouri and all of our other favorite teams should play this type of thing moving forward. But I'll tell you this, the snap counts are always something interesting to look at. And interestingly enough, if you look at the snap counts, boy, it seems like Jamal Roberts might be your number 1 running back for Missouri. But is that a little bit misleading? Let's get into that here in just a little bit. But you know what? It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Yes, the popular golf drink without the alcohol. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories. And I'll tell you, out on the golf course, I always need that little bit of an extra boost to power through the backside. And golf is really all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without having to chase down the bev card. So now you can make the trip even more fun. Just buy Snap and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. And the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And I got to say, FanDuel has the widest variety of futures bets that I have found on the internet. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. So to recap, so far, I have Beau Pribula as your fifth best quarterback in the SEC through 2 weeks of the season. Haven't thought nearly as hard about where Missouri's running back tandem ranks, but I think that's really the way to look at it. Like, who cares if Ahmad Hardy is the best running back in the SEC or if Jamal Roberts is the best running back in the SEC? I look at them as a tandem, and as a tandem, they're looking pretty strong. I don't know where they compare to the rest of the conference, but frankly, I don't care who the number one running back is right now. But I'll say this, it sure seems like most of the time, if you look at the snap counts, when Ahmad Hardy is in the ball game, it's a running play. And when Jamal Roberts is in the ball game, well, Missouri is going to pass the football. These numbers, by the way, from PowerMizzou.com, I always appreciate how they break up the numbers into not only just the total snaps in the ball game in the season, but also run versus pass too. So appreciate the Power Mizzou crew for putting that together for me. But anyway, I do think that's a bit misleading because, quite simply, well, Roberts is in the ball game during obvious passing situations. And in a close game with Kansas, well, a few of those came up, especially with Missouri trailing for a decent chunk of that game. Roberts played 50 snaps to Hardy's 36. And while one thing I was impressed with Jamal Roberts in particular, he came into the season thought of as a third down type of running back. But I'll tell you, he's shown more than that so far, especially really impressive speed, breakaway speed on that final game-sealing touchdown by Roberts, in particular burning a Jayhawk defensive back who appeared to me at one point to have the angle on Roberts. But oh no, he had a little bit too much speed and was not touched into the end zone. The only thing is, of the 38 combined carries for Roberts and Hardy, 11 went for 1 yard or fewer. And I don't really blame the running backs for that, by the way. That's on the offensive line. And that was while Missouri definitely hit some big runs, like that aforementioned run by Roberts that sealed the game. That first touchdown run by Ahmad Hardy, just juking that Jayhawk in the middle of the field for Missouri's first score. That was a thing of beauty as well. But if Missouri is going to be the best version of itself offensively, they've got to be a little bit more efficient on the ground. They can't take that many no gains and losses and 1 yard type of gains in, standard down situations where Kansas was playing fairly conservatively most of the game on standard down, 1st and 10 type of situation, 2nd and 5, that type of deal. They'd usually have a couple safeties back. It's not as though they were completely clogging the box with 8 men or any type of that or anything like that. As I said before in my previous episode, though, the good news is we're still very early in the season. It's not a real surprise that the offensive line still is going to take a little bit of time to gel. And again, the good news is we've seen Brandon Jones put these offensive lines together on the fly during the middle of the season before. And speaking of run versus pass tips, well, when Jordan Harris, the Missouri tight end, is in the ball game, it's usually a run to a maybe 3 to 4 to 1 type of ratio. By the way, Harris played 33 snaps in that ball game, though Brett Norfleet showing the Missouri liking to play a lot of 2 tight end sets this year. Norfleet played 73 snaps, leading all non-quarterback and offensive linemen on offense, did Norfleet. So that's a really encouraging sign that Norfleet is feeling healthy enough to take a real massive share of the snaps there, and obviously had a very productive game, did Brett Norfleet. And by the way, even though it's usually a run when Jordan Harris is in the ball game, be careful if you're a defender. If you're just thinking, oh, it's 2 tight end sets, it's definitely a handoff, I'm willing to bet, I don't have these numbers, but just based on what I've observed here, I'm willing to bet a lot of those passes when Harris is in the game are of the play action pass variety. So if you're a linebacker that's cheating there, I would say be very careful. And also, second to Brett Norfleet, among non-quarterbacks, non-offensive linemen, Marquise Johnson played a big load, 71 snaps despite limping off in the first half, by the way, so he ends up toughing it out and gutting it through. Josh Manning with 58 snaps. Coleman with only 53. I say only because that was third on the team, but 10 catches on those 53 snaps. So somewhat similar to Luther Burden when he's in the ball game. Well, it's more than likely to be a pass as well. Alubade, by the way, just based on the snaps, your clear number 4 wide receiver once again. Also, the 5 and the 6 there, Daniel Blood, and also the Xavier Henry kid, the transfer from Illinois State and Kansas State as well. Eli Drinkwitz, by the way, talking on Kevin Coleman, that huge 10-catch game. They played a lot of soft zone, and Kevin does a really good job of finding holes in the zone, and Beau has a lot of trust in him. Well, you can see why. His hands just catching the ball in traffic when Missouri absolutely needed it on that fourth down. It's the type of catch that maybe Missouri doesn't win the ball game without it. So a bully to Kevin Coleman for sure. And at least in week 2, Eli Drinkwitz talking about how Missouri has 3 corners that they feel pretty good about. Ended up being true, a real 3-man rotation at corner, as Stephen Hall was the third man, but played a significant 28 snaps in that ball game. Also, I'd point out that Marvin Burks, who got beat over the top for a Kansas touchdown in the red zone, and Santana Banner were about even in terms of snaps as well. Burks has had a tough time at times just knowing when he's the last man back in the defense, in my opinion. Too often he's just easily sucked in out of that position. When you're the last man back, to me, you got to be the last man back. I don't know what all of Missouri's defensive principles are, but it seems like a pretty simple one to me. Even when you're on, right on the edge of the red zone there, I think Burks has got to be a little bit less aggressive in getting sucked into those type of plays, especially against a team that runs an offense like Kansas does. And by the way, good on the Missouri student section, frankly, for not rushing the field on multiple different levels. And I don't know if it was the new rule, but I'll tell you, that's a pretty good deterrent, that rule. Let's talk a little bit more about that and why I thought, again, on multiple levels, this was a brilliant move by the Missouri students, and I applaud them for it. But you know what? Of course, college football is back, and I love it, but I don't love getting tickets at the last minute. It's usually too much of a hassle, but that's why I use Gametime. I pulled up Gametime recently and looked at tickets for the Louisiana game, by the way, and compared to your competitors, you're still just getting the best prices on Gametime, I promise you. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Considering Missouri was nearly a touchdown favorite in the ball game at home, the current holders of the War Drum, Missouri really did not need to rush the field after this game. The Tigers ended up winning by a couple possessions. Hey, it was a great win, a fantastic win, absolutely one to celebrate. But was it worth it to rush on the field and pay Kansas $500,000? Because that is literally what would have happened. The fines, this according to Laird Veach, by the way, the Missouri athletic director on KOMU's Football Extra show, well, he said that, hey, that's the new rule. The fines don't just go to a general fund or whatever, or distributed, however, whatever the previous policy is. Well, now the current policy is those fines go directly to your opponent. If you rush the field against Kansas, Texas, whoever it is, not just Kansas, obviously. But in this case, obviously, writing a check to your arch rival for $500,000, there's just no way to be able to actually justify that. I know there's some students who maybe probably would have liked to have rushed the field just to have the experience, and God love them for that. I don't have anything against that. It's just, man, if you're really thinking about that, like, wow, do I really want to give our arch rival $500,000 just to have, 5 minutes, 10 minutes of a fun experience there? Hey, I'll give the SEC this. I think they finally figured out a pretty good deterrent, at least for the Missouri-Kansas game. If it's Missouri and Alabama, and it comes down to some crazy kick six type of ending or something, then I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Then maybe the $500,000 is worth it. But I just can't see justifying paying Kansas $500,000 out of our own pockets under any circumstances. So good on you, Missouri students, for realizing that really that game probably wasn't worthy of a rush, but also hopefully most of you had some idea, maybe word spread a little bit on the money portion as well. By the way, I should point out, Missouri held Kansas to 31 rushing yards in the ball game. For comparison, 207 yards the Jayhawks had in week 1 against Fresno State. So that Missouri rushing defense looking rather stout at this point. I got to say, I need to take another look at the Missouri secondary. I need to do my rewatches. How was the Missouri secondary? The pass defense in general, especially on those deep passes. I know early in the game, the first quarter, hey, slot man, Dalen Carnell had one-on-one, man-to-man. Kansas had just enough time there to get off a pass. And, well, most players in this conference who play the star, if they're one-on-one with an SEC Big 12 caliber receiver, and they have to cover him 40, 50 yards down the field, that's going to be a tough thing for them to pull off and give Jalen Daniels, I'm glad we're past Kansas. I won't make that mistake for the 40th time. But Jalen Daniels, give him a ton of credit. Made an absolutely beautiful deep pass there. That was a dime by him to throw that touchdown ball there. So, I don't know. I need to take more of a look at it, but certainly the pass defense, a little bit more of a question mark than the Missouri rush defense at this point. I think we all could have predicted that, but overall, a really strong performance, I think, for a Missouri defense that was against not only a good Kansas team, a well-coached Kansas team, but the type of team that early in the season, they're shifting around a lot before the snap. By the way, Kansas with almost no procedural penalties, despite all of the shifting around and quick movement and, hey, let's line up, snap it immediately. I was impressed with that aspect of their offense, and occasionally they confused Missouri with it. So I thought that was a good challenge for the Tigers that defensively they were mostly up to. And hey, hopefully I've been up to the challenge of a decent podcast for you today. I know Locked On is always up to the challenge. They're presenting college football kickoff, by the way. Catch it every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. So until next time, I'm John Miller. This has been Locked On Mizzou.